to your tutorials for this week's routine. Today I am answering a lot of client questions that came through about actually several different series that we find in the routine. So let's get started with how to release your hip flexors in the warm-up. The hip flexors and the low belly tend to be directly related. So typically, if we're feeling a lot of hip flexors in something like this, it's because we're not particularly using enough low belly in the motion. Let me show you what I mean. I could easily lean forward and back from hinging right here at this hip crease. Do you all see that? Right now, I am feeling a lot of hip flexors. Now, I want you to watch the change that happens. In order to lean back, I'm going to scoop my belly. And then I'm going to unscoop the belly to come up. And when I do it this way, that causes the legs to relax a little bit more. You still may feel something, but it puts more of that weight into the low belly. So in this week's warm-up, when you twist back, you have to really think about scooping. And if you find that that's still not working for you, your hips are tight, maybe that's just a tight area, then you should bend one knee or both knees so you don't have as much pressure moving forward on the legs, and then that should help you release the hips as you take this warm-up. Okay, leg series. This is always a hot question that comes through. How do I avoid sinking into the standing hip? Now, before I go any further, I have a full tutorial on this called Single Kneeling Leg Tutorial that you should definitely watch, because it's going to give you some more well-rounded overall tips of how to get out of that leg. Because listen, it is not an easy exercise. I get that, okay? But it will improve as you continue on. And this week is a perfect time to practice it because you're only in the position for 4 counts, okay? So when you're in this position, a couple things I want you to make sure of. Your hands definitely need to be wider. By giving yourself a wider base with the hands, you'll basically have like more leg to stand on as opposed to trying to be really narrow in here. So widen the base all the way across the board. And then here's the biggest thing that you need to think about. It is your low belly that lifts you out of the hip. So when I'm here I am, I'm sinking down into this hip right now. I need to use my low abdominals to lift up, 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 and out. This exercise, kneeling with a single leg, is 100% core. So here I am, I'm sinking down. I want to think about pulling the low belly in, lifting out of the hip, staying here. Lots of space, and that's where you're going to start to find all the good stuff happens. Let's move through a few form reminders for your lunge series to make sure you're not feeling a lot of knees or a lot of lower back or any of the wrong places, right? So this week we're doing an upright lunge, which means that your back leg has a little bend to it. So become lunge all the way out here. We have a tutorial on this. Upright lunge, we also have a tutorial on this. That's where your back leg is in a little bit. Now, I want to show you a few wrong ways. So wrong way number 1 would be to take the chest up and try to get down really low like this. Ouch, that does not feel good. You'll notice this, it makes my knee go forward over my ankle. This puts a ton of pressure on my quadricep right here. And I also have a lot of pressure on this back leg. Really, really common for people to move into this spot because they like to think my head needs to be tall and I need to be low. This isn't going to get you anywhere, so watch the change. You shift your knee backwards, angle a little bit forward, and this is where we want to go. Now, with the lower back, okay, one of the things that you want to make sure of is that you're not sinking into the hip of the working leg. And this is where it kind of crosses form techniques with the leg series that we did before. So look here, if I sink down into this hip, do you see this, right? Now my right hip is higher than my left hip, and my belly is falling here onto the leg, and now I'm gonna feel it in my lower back and right over here on the side of the hip. So I wanna think about evening out those hips. Look, look, look. Low belly pulls in and up. Yes, so I'm using my abdominals to lift up and over the leg, and now I have nice light weight in my back leg. This is pulling in, lifting up, low belly supports the lower back, and that should be able to give me those little punches. In the oblique series this week, we are moving from a twisted plank to a lunge. Now the feedback so far has either been, I love it, or I feel like a pretzel. So what I wanna do today is I wanna make sure, number one, that you understand where you're moving directionally with the leg, and then number two, give you an alternative that you can do to get up and get there a little bit easier. So first of all, in the twisted plank, the leg that is under and forward. So maybe you want to think the inside leg or the leg closest to the mat. That's the leg that you're trying to move. So at this moment, that would be my right leg. I'm working to take my right foot in and forward to a lunge position, however we need to get there, right? So that's number one. Now, because that is really tough, maybe you have long legs and it's not super easy to get through, you could also just come down to kneeling before moving that leg in. So you hold your hands on 1, 2, on 3, 4, kneel, step your leg up, then you can lift the chest for 5, 6. And it's not a problem to move this way to get there. I would also highly recommend considering using the chair in this series. I show it in both learn mode and flow mode, and I do think that that chair option is super, super helpful here because it's still tough and you have a lot of space to be able to move your body. If doing isolated arm motions is still difficult for you to get a lot of sensation, I want you to practice a couple of things this week before moving into the whole series of doing arm circles and the pulls and all of that, okay? What you want to do is figure out how to flex the muscles in your arm just in a standing position. So watch here. I'm going to bring my arms to the side. Here they're not flexed. Here they're flexed. Not flexed. Flexed. Okay? Now what you want to be able to do is get this sensation of it feeling flexed and then add little movements to it. So when I'm doing something like this, my arm is staying flexed the entire time. What I'm not doing is going unflex, flex, unflex, flex, right? Instead, I'm trying to keep that muscle active as I do little movements back and forth. And this technique of staying active, not releasing the muscle, is why this series ends up burning so much. So as I'm here in my arm circles, I'm gonna plug my shoulder blades down, hands go just a little lower than the shoulders, then I'm going to flex those muscles, I'm gonna get them turned on, and now I'm gonna try to keep them flexed by doing tiny little circles, as opposed to releasing and trying to go big. So again, the number one thing I want you to practice with this one this week is how do you stand in position, flex the muscles, and then just start to add teeny tiny movement.